Welcome to Under the Basswood Tree with Basswood Counsel, a podcast where we bring you brief, valuable conversations and insights to help you navigate the complex world of business transactions. From cross-border deals to international tax structuring, we cover topics across all industries. Our team and colleagues will share their insights and provide practical tips on key issues for you and your business. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Under the Basswood Tree, Basswood Counsel, built for what's next. Today, we're going to be talking about the general process of estate planning, the basic documents, why it's important for the client to be involved, and we're going to talk about some of the documents, most significantly, the documents for planning for incapacity. So I'm Chris Klug of Basswood Counsel, and we have with me...
My name's Ashley.
And we'll get started.
All right. So in creating an estate plan, what should the client have a basic understanding of how the documents and the process work?
Yeah, absolutely. You want an estate plan to be customized to the client's situation, or the client who's doing an estate plan, they want their personal input into it, right? And if you don't know what the documents are, then you're not going to know what to say. You can be asked a bunch of questions, but if you don't have a kind of an idea how this all works together, then you're not going to know the options. You're not going to know how it could be customized. You're not going to know whether, maybe leaving assets in a trust for a beneficiary is better off. Or you're not going to know that you could have maybe joint fiduciaries. So you could have two powers of attorneys, or you could have two executors of the will. And, if you don't know the process, you may not know that maybe a revocable trust is a better way to go than having a simple will. And so we like to be comprehensive in our approach to estate planning with the client. And part of that is educating the client on what the documents are, what they do, and what the options are. They're not going to be experts in estate planning. That's not needed to customize an estate plan. But from the professional's point of view, if you're customizing someone else's estate plan, one of the main things you need to do is listen, not just presume you know better than the client. So we're keen on listening, using our knowledge to then help the client craft the estate plan to fit their situation. So it's important the client has a general understanding of the documents in determining how to create their estate plan.
Okay. What is estate planning?
Well, so estate planning provides orderly and systematic transfer of wealth to heirs and beneficiaries at one's death. It also plans for incapacity, how are bills paid. You also want to plan during your lifetime. If you want to retire, how do you maintain your style of living? Yeah. And so you got to incorporate all that into estate planning. And, it's important for people to remember, sometimes they think of estate planning as something they have to do, like an obligation, or that their financial advisor says they should have an estate plan, so that's why they should do it. But there's a lot to estate planning. But if you remember what estate planning is, if you own a business, you plan for every angle of that business. If I'm not able to be there that day, someone else can step in and run that business. These people have different functions. Well, your estate plan is planning for your family and yourself. And so if you become incapacitated, what should happen? Who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to make medical decisions? Who's going to make sure your family's taken care of? Should you have some kind of hedge so that if you're the primary wage earner or a significant, wage earner at all, your income's going to be lost to the family. Can you take care of the kids? Can your family continue to live the lifestyle they're living? If you were to die, will assets transfer in an easy way, or is there going to be a lot of trouble encountered by the fiduciary, such as the executor and the beneficiaries, to get the assets? How do you pay for the funeral? And so in looking at it, you worked hard for your life, whether, during your life to create these assets, or you've worked to take care of the family. But either way, everyone plays an important role within the family. And if one person's out of the family, someone's got to fit into those roles. They got to be covered somehow. So estate planning, is the process of taking all these considerations and determining how best to have it covered. If it's an incapacitated event where you can no longer make decisions but are living, or if it's a death and so you're not around anymore, how is everything covered? And for retirement, a lot of times we look at, all right, if you're going to retire, you want to retire what, 65? I don't even know that's feasible anymore. So let's say 105, you're going to retire, right? But what you do is you look at Okay, the wages are now turned off. How do I pay for medical insurance? How do you pay for living expenses? If you like to travel, how is all that going to be covered through your estate plan? And, the estate plan's documents. What estate planning is more than documents, right? What you need to do is look at the income streams. Are there IRAs, Social Security? What's the cost of the mortgage? Will that mortgage be there when you retire? And it's pulling everything together and truly planning for all the events that could impact your family so that you can live the life you want to.
So, what are some of the common estate planning goals?
Well, kind of touched on some of them, but some of the common estate planning goals are make sure you have an estate plan that allows you to live the life you want to live, that you can maintain your standard of living, that upon your incapacity, that you're taken care of. You know the manner you're taken care of. You know the individuals that are going to be involved in that aspect. Upon your death or incapacity, choosing the individuals that'll be in control. So like the executor of your estate, who's going to, come in, pay all the creditors, and then distribute the assets in the manner you want from the estate. And then it comes to the beneficiaries who are going to receive the assets. Should they receive the assets outright? Some may not be financially responsible. If they're receiving a significant amount of wealth, there's other considerations. Maybe the assets should be held in trust for their benefit. And so it's, how do they get the assets and how should the assets be held? So for example, you can leave assets in trust for a beneficiary, even if they're financially stable and good at decision making. Upon reaching a certain age, they can be the trustee of that trust. It's asset protected. And upon their death, they can choose where those assets go. That gives you like complete control. And this vehicle is asset protected and they can be the trustee, so they can manage the assets. So it's really thinking through all the steps. And as a final goal, you want to leave an estate plan that guides your family into the future. And so, they should understand what your intentions are. And your estate plan should set it up so they're guided to use the assets and what the resources you leave to them in a intelligent manner. And if you have a large estate where you're going to be subject to the estate tax or gift tax, you can plan for that during a lifetime. And so there's some options. So it's important to know your assets, whether there's a taxable estate, and then there's some planning opportunities there. So at the end of the day, the most important goals in an estate plan are those of the client.
And what are some important steps to customize an estate plan?
I always say organization is a good step. Know what you have, right? Treat the estate planning with the importance it is. Again, this is your family we're talking about. It's yourself and your family. And so it's very, very important that what you create, A, you understand what it's doing, but B, accomplishes the goals, and C, what you set up in a streamlined way passes the assets to the beneficiaries how they should be. But as far as, important steps to customize, getting organized. And then 2, you need to, think about what assets you have, who you want to receive the assets. And again, on the asset side, part of organization is to get an inventory of your assets. What are the assets? What are the liabilities? Are they passing through a will? Are they joint ownership? Are they going to be held in a trust? And knowing whether you're going to have a taxable estate. And so from an organizational standpoint, it's getting a list of all those assets with the liabilities. And then that allows you to plan. Because some assets you need a beneficiary designation, wouldn't go into a trust, such as retirement accounts. But at the same time, it's important that whether it's in a trust, whether it's in a will, whether it's a beneficiary designation, that everything's coordinated so that at the end of the day, that the people who are receiving your assets receive it. I have a good example. It was family, that they didn't want to use me for their estate planning, which is fine. But the will said one thing where all these financial assets should go, this much to my niece, this much to my nephew, this to my sister, this to my brother. So the will said one thing. Then the beneficiary designation said something else. And, well, the person's was dead at the time. But what was in the will, which was drafted after the beneficiary designations on the assets, didn't matter. Because the beneficiary's designations on the assets control. And so the assets ended up going to other individuals in different proportions than what was intended. And so you want to, in estate planning, you want to make sure those issues are covered and that and they're planned for so that everything's coordinated. So another important element is coordination.
Right. You mentioned planning for incapacity. How important is planning for incapacity?
Planning for incapacity is very important. So advancement of medicine and the care that we get, people are living longer and longer. I hate to say it this way, people are outliving their brains. They're outliving their body. So you're going to need people to care for you. You're going to need people to make decisions for you. You're going to want to think about what should happen. Should you be in a facility? Do you think your children are going to take care of you? Do you think you'll get home aids? Facilities and home health care aids are expensive. How's it going to be paid for? But as an important element of this is to ensure you have people you trust in place that will carry out your intentions for what care you want and for what how financial decisions should be made. I mean, I think there's a good example, and it's a New York case. It was the Astor estate. So, a rich family, well-known family, but the mom got up there in age, and her son, who was the power of attorney and healthcare nominated person, lack of a better way, he wanted to inherit. He was cheap. And so he wasn't really paying for the aids they needed. He wasn't paying for the care that this person probably should have had. It was a case that went through the courts a while back. But that's part of the reason it's important to think through this. Who's involved? Will they carry out your intentions? That's very important. And there's another one. We have a client out in California, and she forwarded, it's not just a case. It's someone who makes their legal living, an attorney, off of situations where these plans are not made. It's a law firm, and they do a lot of guardianship cases. So they're court-appointed guardians, meaning if you don't have anyone appointed, the court would appoint a guardian. In this case, it's a law firm, and they would kind of administer your affairs. Well, A, this law firm was paying themselves a lot. B, when there was any other kind of legal needs of the client potentially, she hired her husband and his firm to do it. And that family actually had their own home health care business. And so for the care of the person subject to the guardianship, it was all being handled through the guardian, the court-appointed guardian, the legal affairs through the husband's firm, and then the nursing care through a company they own. And obviously that's a recipe for disaster. That's all, just too many related party transactions. The scary thing is it got approved by the court. I'm assuming it's being looked more into, but it's always best to plan ahead of time, get people in place that you trust. And, to the extent possible, the more people you can have involved, they don't need to be the fiduciary, the power of attorney or the healthcare agent, but it's good to have someone kind of watching over it so you don't have people stealing money from the person who's now incapacitated. Incapacity planning is extremely important.
Okay. So what is a financial power of attorney?
So a financial power of attorney, very important document. It's where you appoint attorney, in fact, to act on your behalf. And it's usually put in place before incapacity. And so I recommend that just so you don't have to take a person around to doctors to be proven to be, state the person's incapacitated, because you need a written opinion for that the power of attorney goes into effect immediately. Because you're only going to pick trusted individuals. But what the power of attorney will do is make sure your bills are paid. Make sure if you have any needs that they're paid for, if you're able to go on vacation or travel to family, that those costs are paid for. And you file your tax return, taxes are paid, that your mortgage is paid so that you don't lose the house. And so the financial power of attorney is very important. And if you don't have it in place, we kind of just talked about it a little bit on the guardianship side, but whether it's called guardianship or conservatorship, sometimes you can have a guardian plus a conservator over the property. Guardian for healthcare and conservator for property. And the language has used changes depending on the state. But again, if you don't have the power of attorney in place, there's a couple of problems that would happen if you become incapacitated. A, no one can transact on assets that are only in your name. So bank accounts solely in that person's name. can't use that money to pay anything until there's a conservator appointed. Court processes take time. This also can create family conflict because, everyone thinks they know better. Either everyone wants to do it because they want to control the money, or they hopefully genuinely care for the person, or no one wants to do it. And so what can end up happening a lot, and attorneys make a lot of money off of this, is the family fights about who should be the conservator. And that delays the process of appointing that person. And it, it's time consuming, costly, and family friction is created. So, I mean, not always, but the better situation is if you appoint the people you want through a power of attorney. And so, financial power of attorney is a very important document because, your assets are very important to your well-being because they pay for things. And so you want to make sure you have that trusted individual or people in place to step in if you're incapacitated or for some reason are not around to make important decisions.
Okay. So what's a healthcare power of attorney or a medical directive?
So a healthcare power of attorney is similar to a financial power of attorney in that it's a fiduciary that you appoint an agent to make medical decisions on your behalf. In this case, it's going to be when you're incapacitated. So if you're alive, you can make decisions. The doctor's going to listen to you. But if you're incapacitated and you don't know what's in your best interest, or you can't even tell the doctor what's in your best interest, if you have no one appointed, again, you might have to get a guardian involved. But hopefully you listen to this and you know that you should have a healthcare power of attorney where you appoint someone to make those decisions. And then the medical directive or living will, these are kind of aspects within it where you give additional instructions of, hey, if I'm in this state, I don't want to be kept alive at all costs because I know there's no hope of recovery. Just, give me some pain meds. Let me go as peacefully as possible. That's one common thing people put in kind of medical directives. But other people may say, keep me alive at all costs. We don't know where the medical advancements of the future are going. So don't pull the plug. I don't care if it looks like I'm suffering. Keep me going. And then some people want no pain medication. And there's various reasons people have that. So from the planner's point of view, you got to listen to understand what the client wants and not just make presumptions. But again, you want to give direction to the healthcare agent. If I'm in this situation, what do I want you to do? And so it's an important document, again, to have in place. And there's been some cases where if you don't have these healthcare power of attorney or the equivalent, whatever it might be called in a various state, doctors are going to keep the person alive. And sometimes that can go on for years where they're just on a ventilator. And is that the quality of life someone wants? And it may or may not be. We're not here to make the judgment or the decision. We're here to go through the options with you. And so, healthcare power of attorney, again, is very important. And again, if you don't have one, it's a court proceeding to get a guardian appointed over the person. May or may not be the person that you want. So these documents are very important. And that's going to conclude this episode. We're going to continue with this series on the basics of kind of the estate planning. Next, we'll move into intestacy and the probate process and wills and trusts. But we wanted to cover kind of a bite size at the beginning today, and we got through the incapacity documents, plus why estate planning is important. And so we hope you enjoyed this episode of Under the Basswood Tree, Basswood Counsel, built for what's next. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. To stay up to date with the latest legal insights and Basswood events, please follow us on our Basswood Counsel LinkedIn page and visit our website at www.basswoodcounsel.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll speak to you next time.